Hello, and welcome back to the 7 Days, the World Ends With You podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ari Watkin. You can call me Eric, and I'm here with my co-host.
Joshua,
And
and we are here to cover episodes 3 and 4 today as a sort of special double feature.
Yep. Um, yeah, so day episode 3 starts on day 6, which is actually day 4 of the game.
Really?
Yeah. So um the in episode 2, the scene with like Beat and Rhyme talking on the bus about their dreams, that was also included on what the show shows in day 6 as one day.
Got it.
Yeah.
So was the mission day fours or
The mission was day 4.
okay. So I guess kind of just to get into like the plot for the episode, like starts with them going to what was it, Tower Records, I believe.
Yeah. So actually, I want to go. One of the first things that threw me off when I saw it was right at the beginning of the episode, they show a news report of Sota and Nao's death in an accident.
This character's
Um,
important.
they showed up in episode 4. They're
No, I
not
know they did. I just like
they're not super important, but they do show up later on, and we see them alive in the game, but we never see how they die. So we just see them alive, and then they're players. And so here we kind of get that bridge to see how they died and when they died.
I see. So
Yeah,
a
so that's
little
what was interesting.
a little neat thing that the anime added in.
Yeah, so that was just kind of cool thing because we typically see them day 6 of the game, and then we don't see them day 7, and then they're just there and the next week. Spoilers, by the way, for episode 4.
Yeah, we'll dive more into that when we get there.
Yeah, that was so
And
interesting.
so once they reach time records, we get Rhyme Sacrifice.
Yes. Uh, I guess there's actually two more things I want to point out. One of them is just kind of a joke. Um, Two people on a skateboard. I mean, I've longboarded, and I can't imagine someone else on the longboard with me. I don't know if that's a thing people can do.
I mean, I'd imagine it might be possible considering Rhyme's small enough, but I don't know.
I could imagine like two people that were really skilled with a skateboard could do it. I find it somewhat hard to believe that like Rhyme, who doesn't really show any skateboard prowess, is able to tandem ride with Beat.
Well, I mean, she's mostly holding on to him, so I don't know. It may be mostly him doing the work, but then again, I've never longboarded, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. And then the other thing was they were talking about entry fees at the beginning of the episode as well. And it's interesting because in the game, they never bring up amnesia being the entry fee before we learn that it is the entry fee. Um,
I mean, I figure it's just kind of easy to surmise, especially considering like how much they talk about like kind of some things like early on.
yeah. Well, like that's the thing. The first week they don't really talk about entry fees too much besides Shiki's. Shiki's the only one that we really know the entry fee for. And so the fact that they expressly talk about both Rhymes and Neku's is just interesting because that was not something that really happened.
Curiously, we didn't get beats, but I'm figuring that may be a plot point later, considering what happens in episode 4, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, then we get to the actual sacrifice, and we see Beat gets to Tower Records before everyone else, and is kind of gloating, showboating. And Shirk comes and tries to Jaws just get Beat right. Um.
And Ryan protects him,
Yeah, Ryan jumps in the way.
which we get a quick flashback that shows that it seems that Beat did the same thing for Rhyme back in the real world, and that's how they both died.
Yep. Um,
At least from what we've seen. it could be further explained in the future.
No comment.
Yeah, I figured as much.
I'm not even gonna bring it up. If you do not see that like 3 second splash screen, you, yeah, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I figure it'll get expanded on more, especially considering what happens in the next episode. But again, we're focusing on episode 3 right now.
Oh my god, yeah, 3 and 4. I'm actually kind of happy that we're doing this double feature, just because 3 and 4 kind of go together.
They very much do. Like, I feel like leaving at the end of 3 was just kind of a very odd cliffhanger, to put it that way, I guess.
Yeah, well,
And
especially
they kind of left it in a bit of an odd place.
yeah, and I can when we get to that odd place, I had some thoughts about that as well. Um, but yeah, so then we get the Honeycomb comes and takes Beat away. Um,
Yeah, he says two kind of specific things in this episode that I want to bring up a bit later, but we'll get to it when we get to like the phone call with him and Neku.
him and Neko. Okay.
I meant Neku.
Well, you know what the next
Tongue
episode's
tied.
called.
Yeah, I have a question about that too, but I'll save that for the end.
Yeah. So then we get the Shirk fight, and I actually thought this fight was kind of interesting, more interesting than the game version, because it had a bunch of really small fish, and the Shirk was eating the fish to get bigger. And in the game, you just fought the Shirk.
Hmm. It, I would say it is interesting, if though I have to kind of say it was kind of a bit poorly paced, maybe.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. The concept of the fight was more interesting than the game's concept of the fight, but like the one thing that I commented on was the music of it. It was very just like foreboding. And I'm like, I get that a sad thing just happened, but this fight, the way it's animated, looks like it needs more action music than foreboding
Yeah, I
music.
feel like also it could have maybe used like maybe just like even just a little bit more time to be fully fleshed out, because it feels like they kind of wipe out those small fish pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, and then I've also realized it's something that I should have realized sooner, and I kind of just want to like brush it off. But we've seen them now in pretty much every battle just use this focus attack. Um,
Yeah, they definitely have definitely a big focus on the focus attack, especially after like episode 4 where they use it like 3 times in one episode.
yeah, and so I'm like, that's in the game, and it's a special pin that Hanekoma was supposed to give them on day 2. Um, and it how it works is that when they alternate their attacks, there's like a light puck that goes between them, and they get in sync. And when they're fully in sync, then they can unleash a powerful attack together. But here it's just like, oh yeah, if we just stand still, we can fuse our powers together. And
Well, I mean,
kind
it
of
still
lame.
requires them to be synced. It just doesn't require a pin.
Yeah, it's not so much that the pin is missing that gets me though. It's just the fact that the way they get in sync is just them standing there and charging up. It'd be a lot more interesting seeing
Yeah, I
choreography
mean,
where they have to actually bounce back and forth their attacks before doing one final strike together.
I'd agree, but I think also it's just
Cheaper.
either, well, I mean that, but also it'd be a bit harder to figure out how to A, choreograph that, but also B, it's just a lot easier to show them charging up light particles to combine for a big attack.
Yeah. Yeah, so that happens, beats away. In the game, this was paced very differently, and it's hard to explain the game relative to this because of how they mixed up the days. Because remember, this was day 4, so there was still 3 days left in the game. And
Yeah, it kind of feels like you can definitely kind of feel it with Beat's progression in this episode is a bit kind of out of whack.
yeah. And so Neku, he internally struggles with Rhyme's death, but Neku as a character, his whole thing is, I don't care about other people because all other people do is get me hurt. And so outside to Shiki, he just says, screw her. I don't care about Rhyme. Why should I care about Rhyme? because he doesn't know how to process his feelings. And Shiki calls him inhuman, and that he's no better than any of the Reapers. And that's what, like, day 5, when they're like mending the high school friendship, like that's a big less like teaching point for Neku to realize that other people aren't just there to hurt you, and that kind of went missing.
It just sounds a bit edgy though for this time.
I mean, I liked it.
I mean, it's not that we didn't get hints of it in like the episode as well. Like we did get hints of that back in episode 2.
But that's the thing, is that like Neku's a lot more passive, I feel. He's really just like, I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna let other people kind of just do stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's very much what this first week was trying to indicate, is that like Neku, without like anything to like drive him, is pretty passive. But he has two things
how
very
he is
much
in the game.
Well, I mean, gotta pace things a bit differently, but also it gives good motivation for later.
I guess it's just, my whole thought is just like, in the game, he's much more active. He's the one that's actively solving these puzzles, whatever, because he doesn't care about other people, but he still doesn't want to die. He sees the Reaper's game. He even says he sees the Reaper's game as a dream, because no one holds him accountable for anything. Like, he can just kind of do whatever. No one tries to talk to him, and so like he takes charge on the missions because he realizes everyone around him are kind of idiots, and he has to learn that, hey, you can't just do everything by yourself. You do need to let other people help you. And so here it's like he's already letting people help him day 1.
Yeah, but like Anime Neku and Gate Neku are clearly two entirely different characters.
Yeah, I think that's where most of my problems are. Is like, every other character I think is pretty good. They kind of rush all the other arcs. Like, I think Shiki's arc probably was also kind of mishandled, but
I think it
TV
was
still
fine.
feels right.
Like about an episode is fine for that.
Yeah, it just, I felt like it had more weight in the game, but that might just be pacing. But they still had it. Neku's arc feels very different, but they still tried to give hints that, like, oh, it's kind of like the game. It's like, he's not the same character as he was in the game. Actually, mind if I plug someone else?
What about?
There was a video I saw where somebody talks about the psychology of Neku in the anime versus the psychology in the game. And if I remember right, he doesn't really go to too much of game spoilers. Um, and so let me find that video. I highly recommend people watch it. I'm trying.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just like kind of bullet point the ideas from it, that'd be great.
Oh, he just explained my thoughts on it better than I could. Like, I watched it and it was like, yep, that's what I was trying to say, and I couldn't say it. But it's been a while since I watched the video. Um, yeah, I just recommend go checking it out. I'll put it in the description. Once I find the name of it again.
Oh, speaking of putting things in the description, we should probably also link to the Funimation website for being able to watch this, as that is where we are watching this legally, of course.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah. Check Funimation. Funimation's great. Man,
Now, I mean, it could be better, but it works.
No, I'm struggling to find it. I'll comment it when I do find it. Let's just continue going.
Okay, so then after that, we begin day 7.
Yeah, yes.
And so that starts with Hanakoma's phone call.
Yep.
And so bringing up just when he came in and saved Beat yesterday, there was that one thing about just like seeing what he could do about it. And then also that line that he says to Neku with, "You'll understand." I I forget what like the entire thing, but it was just like basically that you'll understand
you
it
understand
in
one day.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious, like on what like Hanekoma's role is going to be in the future, but that's just something that I'm trying to keep in mind for in the future.
Yeah. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm
um,
like, I don't know if there's anything you could expand more on that. I just figured I'd bring it up just because it was something that I found interesting and important to bring up.
um, I will bring up that at this point we do know that Beat has a special pin that
Mm,
Honeycomb gives him. But we don't see that pin at all or what it has done yet. Um, in the game, we don't fully understand the nature of it, but we have seen it used by this point. Um, and so there's that. Also, I found the video. It is the world ends with you failing Neku anime versus game character analysis by Thought Bubble.
mm, okay. If there isn't too many spoilers in it, you could send it to me after this podcast.
Yeah, I'll be watching and send it to you if it doesn't have too many spoilers. But um, for general audience, there shouldn't be. But I want to keep you fresh, keep you wet behind
Yeah.
the ears.
All right. Um, and so okay, and so then after the Hanakoma talk, we um we get the brief confrontation with Beat and the Reapers, which I assume will link into the thing that comes towards the end of episode 4. So I'm not going to get too deep into that.
Yeah, that conversation pretty much went the same way in the game.
Yeah,
Um, and then we see a
there
brief
also just isn't too
conversation.
much to take from it either.
Yeah. Um, well, the only thing that there's slight differences. Like in the game, it just took place like in the Reaper hideout, but here it took place like in a Mexican chili dog place. Um, and then like the Reapers in the game threaten Beat like saying you have no room to talk or no room to ask us questions, but yet they still take questions anyways. But like small stuff. There was no big change in that
Yeah,
conversation.
but that's antagonist 101. They say you have no right to question them, yet they'll give you all the time they want that you want to question them.
Yeah. Well, it's more like Yuzuki says, like you have no right to question, and then Korea just caves because Korea finds Beat interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
He's an interesting character. I'm curious to see where it goes, but there hasn't been anything too big with him yet.
yeah, Korea's a interesting character. I find him fun. Um,
Yeah.
I actually haven't paid that much attention. Have they given him his nickname yet? Or is he still just Korea in the anime?
I think, yeah, it's just that.
Yeah. And do you mind if I spoil the nickname? It's not a big deal. Like they call him that pretty early on in the game. Um,
What, because I don't even know if that nickname will come up.
yeah.
So,
Uh, it's fine. It's lollipop. They
oh, I
yeah
mean, he does have like a whole bunch of them on him.
yeah. So like a lot of characters will just get nicknames based off like a quirk or something that they wear. Like a lot of people call Neku phones.
Yeah. Like you,
Um,
like the nicknames that they kept for like Beat and like Neko at least.
yeah,
At least when it comes in between the two of them, but that's about it from what we've seen of nicknames.
yeah. Honeycomb, I think is the one that starts the phones thing, but other characters kind of keep it up. Um,
Yeah.
but we didn't see that conversation on day 2, and that's part of the problem. Uh, and then like the Kitanaji guy, the guy that Beat talked about. Um, I totally butchered his name, by the way. Uh, they just call him Shades because he wears sunglasses all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of characters just get stupid nicknames based off stuff like that.
I see. And so then we get to the game master for this week
Well, there's a brief
and his fight.
conversation. Yeah, there's a brief conversation with Shiki and Neku right before the fight. And I don't have too much. It was pretty much how it was in the
I mean,
game.
it's pretty much it's pretty much like their goal that they've been saying throughout the entire thing. So
Yeah, that seems like it was pretty much the exact same as it was in the game. I just wasn't sure if you had something to say, like the meeting with the Mr. Mew in Hachiko.
I mean it isn't too much. I mean that I mean there isn't much to say about it other than like if they actually do meet up by the end of this, but that's something that we won't know till the end of this. At least for me.
See, here's the problem: is that if I say I don't know, then that somewhat spoils it, and if I say I do know, that also kind of spoils it.
Yeah, just be like no comment.
Yeah, I plead the fifth. Um, and then the fight happens. He
I feel like this like the second fight with the game master is a lot better paced.
Yeah, the whole jealousy thing doesn't make sense this time around because we didn't see him use that on day 5 like he normally does.
What jealousy thing?
He talks about how like Shiki's no longer jealous and now like he lost his
Oh.
ingredient. And it's like that just seems really weird and out of place, but in the game it makes sense because he
No,
was
I think
poking at her
it's
jealousy.
well, I mean, I guess since yeah, he wasn't there to poke at it, but I still think it just kind of makes sense in a way, you know? Like
Yeah.
Game Master would still know about it, even if he didn't have a direct hand in it.
Yeah, it just builds so much of the conflict of day 6, him poking at her jealousy on day 5. And so the fact that she comes over her jealousy on day 6 and then 7 he acknowledges that she isn't jealous, it feels somewhat satisfying. Um
I still feel like it works, but that's probably
yeah.
just from my perspective. So
Yeah, and then also in his fight, he most of the moves he did were pretty much from the game. The fight was pretty much the same. Although the one move he didn't do that I think is like one of his signature moves is he doesn't eat your attacks or Neku's attacks. Um, in the game, he could just like stop and like I think he shouts "devour" and he absorbs all attacks and doesn't take any damage.
hmm. Well, I mean, you saw with the eating animation earlier in episode 3. You sure you want to see it again?
I'm trying to remember what you were talking about.
That shark eating animation with the fish.
Oh, with the fish. Okay. No, so in the game, it doesn't look like actual eating. It's like a purple vortex around his mouth. So I was like, they could do
Oh,
something like that.
yeah, but you think they wanted to open the mouth of that thing?
Fair. Um,
I'm
also,
pretty sure they're pretty tight already with trying to animate as many monsters as they are.
I didn't mention this, but also Rhyme, her death was absolutely brutal.
Yeah,
Like in
yeah,
the game, she was just gone. Like it was like chomp gone. And here we just see her flailing outside of his mouth for like a minute.
yeah, yeah. I, I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like just based off of what Hanekoma said, that she may return, but that's just something that I feel like speculating off of his words from.
Yeah. Anyways, so
Um,
moving on.
and and then so we get the meeting with that guy. I forget
So
his name.
it's like Kitanaji, I believe. I'm butchering that name. Let me look it up to make sure.
Yeah, like the guy with the shades.
Yeah, they call him Shades in the game, and I mostly go off the nicknames. So like the Japanese games completely go over my head. Um, let me just make sure. Kitaniji.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Shades. Let's just call him Shades. Uh,
It's just easier to call him shades, honestly.
yeah, so that place took that conversation took place in the White Room, and the White Room shouldn't have been as early as it was. I was actually kind of disappointed that they showed the White Room first, because how that happened in the game was we see flashing of light as they are standing on the street, and Neku this entire time has been calling Shiki stalker. Like all he did was call a stalker the entire week. And then when they see the flashing light, he calls out Shiki, and she says the line, "Neku, that's the first time you said my name." Uh, and then they talk about how like, oh, this feels like we're being redeemed. This is a blessing or whatever. Next thing we see, Neku waking up in the middle of Scramble Crossing, just like he did week one.
Yeah, like for a game, that's probably fine. For an anime, I think it's just better that they're suddenly in the White Room.
Imagine the cliffhanger on that, though.
I
Imagine
mean,
the cliff.
sure, but you'd be confusing your audience to all like.
Hey, I was confused. The game's set up in a chapter-like thing, so that was the end of that chapter, and I'm like, why is the not credits?
Yeah, but I think just kind of explaining it is also what like kind of makes episode 4 work
Well, yeah,
because
that's
like
the that.
it's what gives Neku reason to continue on.
Yeah, but they do explain a little bit. Like as soon as Neku wakes up, he says he's doing it for Shiki and acknowledges that Shiki's the entry fee. And at the beginning of day two, when he's talking to Josh, he tells Josh about the White Room, and we get a flashback to all of that.
Then basically it's just fine for it to be where it is.
Yeah, I just wanted the cliffhanger, man. I just wanted the cliffhanger. Is that all? Is that too much to ask for?
Yeah.
Um, Also, in the game, Beat was at the White Room as well,
Hmm.
and Beat chose to become a Reaper before anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get deeper into that in episode 4, but I think it's maybe a bit fine. They may change that scene up a bit, maybe for the anime.
Well, we've already seen the White Room scene, so we know that he
Well,
wasn't there
I
in the
mean,
White
but
Room the
they
whole time.
may do a different flashback for Beat.
Oh yeah, probably. Um,
Other than that, when talking in there, they bring up the composer, which I figure will be an important thing for later.
yeah. So, uh, they'll go. I'm trying to remember at what point they really start talking about it, but I'm trying to figure out if I can say what I want to say or I can't say it.
Well, if you're having that question, maybe don't say it then.
Yeah, they'll explain that in due time.
Yeah, but then basically the episode ends with Neko choosing to go back into the game for a second week and Shiki being his entry fee. So that's
Yeah,
basically his goal going into the second week.
that okay. So this scene kind of hurt as well, because first off, I think they really failed Neku's arc the first week. I like they try to give him like a redemption story with like Shiki saying how much he helped her. And it's like in the game it feels earned because he really had changed a lot. And in here it's like all he did was get possessed by noise, immediately forgive him for being possessed by noise, and then did the missions.
Yeah, though I feel like it kind of at least fits a bit better into why he needs to go into a second week. Because if his arc felt like it had been complete, then the second week just kind of feels maybe a bit pointless, at least in my opinion.
Well, I shouldn't say it's complete because it isn't complete. The second week he still has a lot of growth. Um, and I feel like they haven't done a good job of showing Joshua the way the game shows Joshua as well. But Joshua is kind of a prick,
Oh, I
and
mean, you can definitely get it from episode 4, and we'll go over that when we get there. But
yeah, but it Neku was lucky because he learned to like and trust his partner when he had a likable and trustworthy partner. And then you get Josh, who is a total prick and is not trustworthy, and he has to learn to deal with that. So his arc is not complete, but like he didn't feel like he deserved the redemption that Shiki gave him, like all the praise. And then Shiki believes she actually is getting resurrected when she disappears. Um,
Hmm.
so she floats away and like reaches out to Neku as she's floating away, and she disappears, and she thinks she's like getting peace. Um, and
I don't know. I
then
think of it. I think the him saying that she's the entrance fee in front of like him and her is maybe a little bit more tragic.
yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I said it hurt because it's like at least she thought she had peace, and now it's like, oh no, we get to see her pain.
Yeah,
Um,
like the anime has definitely made some things a bit more tragic by the sounds of it.
oh yeah. Well, no, we'll get to that at the end of episode 4. Um, so also Neku immediately gets his memory back, and he's told directly in the White Room, "Amnesia was your entry fee. Here it is." And Neku is thinking about it and realizes in the White Room, "I don't remember how I died, so you didn't give me back my full entry fee." And Shade says, "Your entry fee is given back completely. So any memories you don't have, you never had to begin with."
Hmm.
Um, and then he tells Neku after Shiki's already gone that, by the way, Shiki's your entry fee. Good luck.
Yeah, I feel like just him saying that Shiki's the entry fee in front of him with Shiki disappearing right before his eyes is definitely a bit more brutal.
Yeah, it kind of hurt. And like I'm not sure because I thought it was a very sweet moment, the Shiki disappearing in peace. But this was just a lot more tragic.
Yeah, I think like it just serves as like it's better tragic motivation than just like oh hey your friend that just disappeared there, yeah, that's actually your entrance fee, go ahead and go do your second week.
Yeah, but also I feel like it works in some ways because remember Neku's arc has been he doesn't trust anybody and he wants to be completely left alone, and then he realizes the most valuable thing to him is this person he just met. More valuable than his own memories is this person that he just met.
Okay, and I mean you still get that in the anime. I don't think that's taken away from in any aspect.
No, but I just yeah okay.
And so any final thoughts on episode 3 before we get into episode 4?
Um, I'm sure I'll probably reference things in episode 3, but I don't have any real more things to say about it.
All right, so then I guess on to episode 4, where we start with Neku waking up once again in Shibuya Cross.
No, he
Um,
was in Hachiko.
well, in front of the Hachiko statue, which is like right next to Shibuya Crossing.
In the game, it starts pretty much the same way as the first time.
Yeah,
Um,
including the mission being quite similar, at least in the beginning.
yeah, and Neku has a brief thing to himself where he talks about how he needs to find just the strongest partner in the game, just find an absolute brute to help him beast his way through.
I don't know. I just kind of like how Joshua just kind of nonchalantly comes up and be like, "Hey, you want a partner?"
Oh no, you would have liked him in the game. Do you want to talk about that?
I mean, yeah, we could talk about it, like, because I mean, that's pretty much what happens. Like, first off, is noise appear, and
Yeah.
then Joshua enters
Yeah.
in the anime, at least.
So yes, there wasn't much that happened, I believe, between um, the crabs come and attack Neku because he doesn't have a partner.
So he can't use his
Yeah,
powers.
and then Neku doesn't know who he partners with. He just knows that he partnered with someone by accident.
Oh,
Um, and so you do the fight with Neku not knowing who his partner is, and then he sees Josh afterwards and says, "Oh crap, I'm with this scrawny kid."
Okay, that is maybe a little bit more comedic, though. I do just kind of like how nonchalantly Josh shows up and like, hey, want to be my partner?
Yeah, yeah. No, Josh goes on. So this way, I mean, when like they don't do a great job showing Josh as a prick, because Josh just goes on. It's like, hey, you looked very experienced, so I just help myself.
Well,
It's
I
pretty much what he
mean,
says.
there are definitely some things where it's like definitely like his nature as being like somewhat arrogant kind of pops up, you know?
Yeah, it's just in the game, like before you even make it to the 104
I,
building.
and I mean, you know, it's only our first episode with Joshua so far, so I mean,
That's true. It's just like you have like there's like three big moments all before you get to the 10-4 building with Josh. Um, just gets to be an absolute prick. Like you see, like Neku's already up a tree by the time they make it to 10-4. Oh yeah, so that was another thing too. The game master, when he gave you the mission, didn't just do it through.
actually, hold on before we get to that. There was one thing that I wanted to mention actually from the Neku and Joshua partnering scene. Actually,
Yeah.
two things. Um, so the first thing being when Neku and Joshua first partnered up, only Neku's second player pin badge glowed, not the first one. So I'm curious on if that has any potential meaning. And then the second one being how Neku scanned Joshua, I guess. I guess it would be scanning. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same, but there was that, and
Oh
that's what like kind of starts like him like recognizing that his memories are coming back.
yeah, that's actually another thing I wanted to bring up too. Is that in the game he just immediately gets his memories back in the White Room and he remembers everything. Uh, and in here he's like slowly gaining his memories back over time. So until day 2 that he figures out he's getting his memories back.
Yeah, like because like by day two he remembers that he's in front of the Hachiko statue.
Yeah. But then I was going to comment on when we first get the mission mail. The mission actually changed. Um, it was not the square root of 10,816. It was x equals 70 plus 34, t equals 60 minutes. Incompletes will be destroyed.
Mm.
Which both of those equal 104.
It's
So
yeah, I'm like both equal the same thing. I think
yeah.
just also it seems like they're definitely trying to go with like it's gonna be a square root every day for the mission, boys.
Um, Actually, square roots typically for the missions will only save for route numbers, and that's why I find it a little weird. So they might be
Yeah, I don't
doing
know.
square roots for every mission now, but before it
Yeah,
was
maybe
square root
different
tells you
math
which route.
equations.
Yeah.
I see.
Um, and then also he uses like a speaker or some system, and like he yells it at all the players. That was interesting.
Yeah,
That didn't happen in the game.
yeah. I'm curious as to what Matsumoto's goal is, because the
Uh,
speech that he makes to all those players is
Minami
like,
Minamimoto.
oh, is it Minamimoto? I thought
Yeah,
I read it as Matsumoto. I must have just
yeah, it's
misread that.
Minamimoto.
Minamimoto. Um, but yeah, I'm just curious because it seemed like there was something behind what he said to all those players, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. So that conversation. So this is I wrote more notes for that like 2 minute scene than on everything else we've talked about so far. Um. So do we want to get into that? One thing also that I forgot to mention that I just put in my notes. But the way that Josh grabbed Neku when Neku was like launched back when they first met, there's gonna be fanfic for that.
I mean, assuming that there probably already isn't Neko and Joshua fanfic.
Oh, there's a whole bunch already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably already a lot.
Yeah, but now it's just exponential. The fact that in the anime, the first thing they do is hold each other in a loving embrace.
Yeah, I mean, the Fujoshis will love that.
uh, I'm excited. There's a funny comic that I saw where Neku's handing out Valentine's Day cards, and he gives one to Josh, and it just says "F you," and Josh is just like, "Aw, you shouldn't have."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
um. Anyway, so okay, I'm gonna get your take on that whole speech that Minamoto gave before I say anything because I wrote notes.
I can't remember like the specifics of like what he spoke about anymore at this time, but I do think like what he started doing, like trying to pin the players against each other, was definitely an interesting like idea.
So, so part of his speech is uh I think what you're getting at is he talks about like how he's like calculating something. All of his games are part of this equation that he has going on.
Yeah.
So we do know he's up to something. What that is, we don't know yet. Um, so originally that scene was just Josh, Neku, and Minamoto. There was no one else in that scene.
Hmm.
Um, and Neku Minamoto keeps talking to Neku, and Neku realizes that he's talking to him as if they've met before, and Neku doesn't know why they met or where they met. And
Oh
Neku
yeah,
gets
there
like
was
a
also that thing where Minamoto mentions that Joshua is a part of it. He was very intrigued by that. That was another thing that I just remembered.
yeah, but yeah. So Minamoto talks, and Neku gets a splitting headache when both of them are there. In fact, pretty much whenever Minamoto's around. So maybe we'll
Hmm.
see more of that. But Deku gets a splitting headache, and like Josh is pretty much carrying this whole conversation on. And he sticks some noise on them. You fight the noise, and then the headache goes away, and that's the end of the day. Here, he's speaking to a whole crowd of players. Um, in the game, we really don't see other players. Like when the first week you see Beat and Rhyme, and that's it. And the second week you meet Soda and Now, and the less important than Beat and Rhyme War, and that's it. Here we see what, like 15 pairs, probably 10 pairs,
I mean,
15 pairs.
we even seen like we've seen more pairs like back in what was it like day 4 in week 1 where like that big like laser beam thing came from the sky and eliminated players.
Yeah, so that's something I think it's interesting that there's a lot of focus between other players, with other players. Um, the player v player thing was not really like, I think the idea of players fighting other players is brought up maybe once, and they all decide like that's a dumb idea. Like you don't do that.
Or at least you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Um, and it's interesting that he's doing the same tricks that messed up Neku, and so Neku is now teaching everyone, "Hey, trust your partners. That's the only way you're gonna survive."
I mean, he's seen like twice and one time firsthand basically what happens when you don't do that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like the what was the thing that got him possessed by the noise? That was kill your partner and you'll survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's seeing again that same trick being used on other players, and he's trying to teach them, which was not in the
Yeah,
game.
I'm also curious if we'll see a conclusion to that scene because they kind of skip over it. But there was also that thing where he told the players to like gang up on that reddish purple haired Reaper chick. I
Mizuki.
forget her name. Yeah,
Yeah.
though I know that was the guy like kind of like fends off a lot of them.
Korea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my thing is like, and again, this is where like the possession thing gets to me because like I thought there'd be more of Neku being possessed, and we still haven't seen that. Granted, it's episode 4. Um, we haven't seen any more or any hints of Neku being possessed again. And so it's like, well, if Neku had genuinely came to that conclusion like he does in the game, that hey, it's a good idea to kill my partner. Now that he's telling other people there's progression, he actually learned something versus I had no control over my actions, but now I'm going to teach these people to take control of their actions. And so
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The anime definitely seems like I don't know how the game does it, but the anime definitely does seem more like players versus reapers than at least I don't know, like from like the sound of it, how the game sounds.
Reapers Reapers are there to hunt players, but they're much more passive. They send noise after you, and that's pretty much all they do. The only real like street level Reapers we see are Yuzuki and Korea. Um, and even then, like we've pretty much seen them in the capacity that they have in the game, but in the game there's more time between, so they feel less prevalent than they actually are in the show. That is,
Yeah.
but it's much more of just hey, you have 7 missions, survive the missions, and the Reapers might try to screw with you along the way. Like
It definitely seems like I don't know. And maybe it's just me, but it seems like there's definitely a lot more tampering in this than I don't know, maybe just what I expected the game would have, but I don't know.
yeah. Let's see, like, and that's part of the problem where it's like day 4 in the game, which is day 6 in the show. Like, yes, that was tampering, but like that was planned, and we saw in the background how that plan was being made. So we already knew that it was kind of a trap. In fact, I think they even talk about it feeling like a trap. Um, but like you would go like a day or two without really encountering Reapers. Like day 3, you really don't encounter Reapers. Day 5, you encounter the game master at the end of the day, but he doesn't really do anything but like poke at you. He doesn't send any noise to fight you. Day
Yeah, I
six, you
mean,
don't.
and I mean that's kind of what we see in week one as well. Just like most of the time, it's just like the Reapers like looking at it from afar. So
Yeah. I just think the game has obviously more time to breathe because it's a video game. So it doesn't feel like there's as much tampering in it as the show makes it out to be. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
yeah,
yeah. So getting back to the 10-4 scene because I still haven't finished on that one. Uh, yeah. So you mentioned players were told to then go after Yuzuki, and Korea takes a whole bunch of them out with noise. Like I'm just like that scene hurt my brain so much because we just see so many of them getting demolished. I'm like, this was not in the game. Like this is so different from anything we see in the game. Like the other parts, it's like okay, okay. This is like this wasn't that way.
yeah, but I think it makes the world feel like more lived in. You know,
I mean, you more dead in.
hey, you can be alive while you're dead.
Dead people are people too.
I mean, you know, it's not like there's that infamous anime quote: people die when they're dead," or something like that.
Oh yeah. I don't know. That whole scene was just like it was so weird watching that from playing the game. Where it's like, but actually, this might give
Oh,
more
people
credence.
die when they are killed. That's the
That's what
quote.
it is. This could give more credence to it being in the Neo universe because in the trailer for Neo, it seemed like player versus player was going to be more prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, also it just seems like there are more players in general in Neo.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we have a pact of 4 people, and
Yeah.
so that was not a thing. It was 2 people. It was a partnership. Um, so I mentioned this in a previous episode of our show, but they finally brought it up, and I didn't think they were going to at this point. The Reaper decal.
I think we're kind of skipping ahead a bit too much into day 2 first there, mate.
I'm gonna be honest. Day 2, after what happened in that scene, has like little notes for me.
Because I mean, because when we start day 2, we start with Neku like acknowledging that like his memories are starting to come back, and then
Oh
we
yeah, that's why
get
we
the
skipped it.
yeah, I mean, I kind of brought it up already, but also we get the introduction of roots and then the decals. So if we want to get into roots and decals, we can now.
Yeah. So again, this is where my knowledge of the game messes me up because I'm like, oh yeah, we already know he has his memory back from the end of the first week. It's like, oh nope, we didn't learn that till day 2. Um, yeah, so we see the Reapers fiddling with the roots, and Minamimoto's not been telling them what roots are open or closed.
Yeah.
Um, we also saw Joshua on the phone with someone.
Yeah, that also he was talking about the roots as well in that phone call, so I found that interesting. Like, and I'm assuming that that might have been Hanekoma potentially.
Okay.
Because it seems like those two seem to have a bit higher knowledge about what's going on than like regular people, but they aren't reapers. At least I don't think, but I don't know.
But Joshua's a player,
Yeah.
and Hanekoma, we've established, is not a player.
Okay. So Minamoto is a player apparently in Neo, so I mean, what's that got to do with anything?
But I've played everything, including New Day, including all the secret reports, and I can't even explain that one.
Really, they don't explain Hanekoma's existence.
Oh no, I was talking about Minamoto
Oh,
in Neo.
well, we'll see on that, but I mean, and we'll see on that too. That's just my speculation on what's going on there.
Yeah.
May potentially even have to do with next episode's thing, but we'll get to that when we get there as well.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
So, anyways, do we want to talk about decals?
Yeah. One more thing about the routes though was that I think it's official that there will be no tin pin in the World Ends with You animation.
I mean, unless somehow that's like the plot of an episode.
Well, no, that was day 2 of this week. Was supposed to be Tin Pin Slammer.
I
And
mean, but we've already established they mix around days a lot.
yes, but going to Route 3 was never a mission, but you had to go through Route 3 in order to get to the Tin Pin Slammer. So like they literally just because it said like use I forget exactly how they worded it, but like the mission said like go Route 3 to win AU or whatever, and AU is the atomic thing for gold.
Mm.
Um, and they cut off the AU part and just said go to Route 3. So it's like okay, well, so it sounds like there's not going to be because we already saw that the tickets that uh what's her face Mina gives to I or 777 tickets and not Tin Pin Slammer tickets like in the game.
I don't know. I mean, there's still time to see, but most likely not. Then probably.
And then finally we get to the Reaper decal. That is introduced so early on in the game, and I like brought it up. Like if they haven't brought it up by this point, it's not going to be brought up. And apparently, I was wrong. Josh teaches you instead of Shiki. Okay.
I'm like, hey, If the anime's been messing around with a whole bunch of stuff, why wouldn't they mess around with something like that?
Well, that's taught like day 3, maybe day 4. I can't remember.
Yeah, but I mean, it's I don't know. Like we just kind of have to see where the anime is going with some things,
Yeah. Um.
because as we've established, this is definitely not entirely a one for one adaptation.
No, it is not. And we'll get to that. Don't worry. Then we got the black noise.
Yeah, the taboo noise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the taboo. Um.
I'm just yeah, I don't know if it was mostly just a game mechanic or if there's actually a special link to it because like the way that they frame the dialogue makes it seem like it's somehow kind of specially connected to Matsumoto, but I don't
Um.
know. Or
Yeah.
Minamoto,
So yeah,
Minamimoto.
there's it is a game mechanic. So how the game typically works is unless there's a Reaper specifically sending noise after you, you choose to enter noise fights through scanning. And if you don't scan for noise, then noise don't attack you. Um, but in the show, noise just come out of nowhere anyways. So it's heard. But in the game, you're walking and you just get jumped by these noise with no Reapers around. Um, and you can't deal damage to them unless you are syncing up your attacks. So unless you're alternating attacks.
I see. And basically the way that they just take that is basically you have to do the union attack thing for it.
Yeah. Which kind of sucks. Again, like that goes into my problem with the focus thing because I didn't want to believe that it was the special pin, but I should have believed that was the special pin. But yeah, it's annoying that they don't make it to like cool choreography where they have to actually alternate attacks before they can launch it.
Well, I mean, at least I gotta say about Neku's and Joshua's union attack is that it actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah, in the game, Shiki's is cooler than how they made it look in the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, I don't know. It seems like a bit of a hard task to make Shikis look cool in animated form. I don't know.
I mean, in the game, it is literally Mr. Mew growing to the size of the 109 building, or yeah, 104 building, and shooting lasers from his eyes.
Hmm.
So like,
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to do that.
yeah. So I don't blame them for not doing Shikis properly, but also like, well, okay, that's also not entirely fair. There's 3 levels to the fusion attack, and each level does something different. But like even the weakest one, it's supersizes Mr. Mew and they ride him as he's like flying around like Superman punching everything.
Yeah.
Again, I understand why they don't want to do that.
Yeah, though I find it weird that like kind of Joshua's powers go from being like more of like a telekinesis thing to being straight up ice in the Union attack. But whatever.
Um, I believe that's like the level 3 attack is what they're using. Um, although it's a little upsetting just because in the game it looked a lot more fun. Because how Josh did it in the game was he used his phone and he would like take pictures of something and then like take a picture of something else and then drop that item.
Hmm. For like just like his regular attack stuff.
Yeah. So like he would take a picture of something and it would disappear, and then he would like take a picture and it would reappear where he was taking the new picture and it would fall down.
Hmm. Definitely would be interesting, but I could see why they definitely wouldn't want to animate it that way.
Yes, but now there's some problems where it's like every time we see them fight now, it's with one of those junk heaps around.
Yeah.
But I guess they can control for that, like only show fights with junk heaps.
Well, I mean, I just kind of assumed that like Minami Moto just set them up that way. Like, cause like that's what you see him first appear on. So like it just seems like maybe he set them up at each goal point, but which
He's
also
kind of
just makes it really convenient for Joshua. But I mean,
he's kind of eccentric,
whatever. Yeah,
if you haven't noticed.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are just his works of art. He talked about how he only allows for flawless calculations and beauty.
Hmm.
So he sees himself as kind of like an artist, and those are
Yeah,
works of art. And that's literally all it is just what he thinks looks beautiful.
yeah. It's also very helpful for Joshua to use his items in battle.
Yep, that's true. But yeah, there's no real significance to the junk heaps. They all make jokes about the junk heaps. They're just like, yeah, we don't know why he keeps building those.
Yeah, it's definitely funny though.
Yeah. Um,
Um. So, anyways, do you want to move on, or is there anything left to talk about
I think that's it
before
about
we
the taboo
move?
noise. I'm curious to see how they make the taboo noise more special. Because again, in the game, taboo noise were the only ones that were actively aggressive and could attack you out of nowhere. But in the show, all of them do
About
that
every
anyways.
single noise attacks you out of nowhere.
Yeah. So it's like I don't know how they're going to make taboos seem different. So we'll see how they pull that off.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe with just the way that they set up the dialogue for it being linked potentially to Minami Moto could be
Maybe.
something, but I don't know. I may just be reading too much into that scene.
So then we got Eri again.
Yeah, I like that
That was not in
apology
the game.
scene.
That was not in
I
the
like,
game at all.
wow, really?
We do not see Eri again after day 6. She only appears on day 6.
Huh.
So, um, her buying flowers for Shiki crushed me. I actually legitimately cried to that scene.
Hmm.
Um, I was not expecting it. I that those are the kind of changes where I'm like, I am more than okay with that kind of stuff. That's what I want to see. Um, that was rough.
Yeah.
uh, she was buying flowers for Shiki and saying how like she doesn't want Shiki to be alone, and then realizes that she's the lonely one. Uh, the florist goes, grabs a new bouquet from the back, and gives it to her. And Neku tries to apologize, but Eri obviously can't see him.
Yeah. But I still feel like it's like a nice scene that even though like Eri can't see Neku, it
It's
helps with
catharsis.
Neku. Yeah, it's like it's helpful for Neku because he can like apologize to Eri for like doing this to Shiki.
Yeah, that's the thing is that like we actually didn't mention this earlier in the episode because I forgot about it at the time. But at the beginning of the episode, he sees two living people talking about going and buying clothes, and he kind of reminisces like that should have been Shiki, and it's not. Um,
Yeah, I think like they even go out of the way. Like I don't know if it was the exact same Seiyu or if or it was a different like voice actor to like that sounds pretty similar, but like it made it sound like Shiki too.
yeah,
So
and so I'm like, Neku has moments where he definitely thinks about Shiki, but like this, we've never seen really like this. Like, what is she actually missing?
hmm.
Like, we don't see anything from her life or anything like that. Like, it just Neku being like, she deserves a second chance. She didn't get it, so I have to win for both of us. But now we're
Hmm.
seeing actual implications of like, oh crap, she didn't get to go back and live her life.
And like these are the things that she should be doing right now.
Yeah, um, that's kind of heartbreaking. Uh, also, Neku is interesting in the game because he never really questions about wanting to go back. Like in here, he's asking himself like, wait, I spent my entire life like a douchebag, and now I have no one around me. Like, do I have anyone to go back to? Does anyone miss me? Um, he never has that in the game. He's just focused on surviving.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if that becomes the major thing of week 2 is struggling to figure out, you know, is there something worth going back for?
Yeah. Like there's definitely that thing where it's like also like which kind of gets into like kind of his next thing where it's like we get like kind of like this big flash of all of like Neku's memories and whatnot. Um with like I can't remember. I remember like the one thing in front of like that graffiti wall and also like his death, but like
What he said, or
um well not like what he said, but more of just like the things that appear that he like when he's thinking about his memories.
I'm trying to remember. So he mainly just remembering like walking past crowds, no one really paying attention to him. He
Yeah.
remembers Utagawa and like some saying of like, I mean, I'm forgetting the saying. Crap, what do you say? It was like every something. Uh, it was basically just enjoying everything you got while you have it.
Yeah.
So he was going to do his own thing, his own way. Yeah. Um, and then we get, I forget the order. Was it the confrontation with Beat or the confrontation with Josh first?
Um the confrontation with Josh comes at the end, but like that stuff with his like memory stuff comes like I think right before Beat, and then also comes again a little bit right after when he touches Joshua again. But that's when the confrontation with Joshua happens. So Beat would be first.
Yeah. So Beat shows up as a Reaper. In the game, we already knew he had become a Reaper. Um,
In the anime, this is the first time seeing him that way.
yeah. Uh, there's a fight. So this is where I remember the event, but I don't remember the order that well. So I'm trying to think of Beat shows up on day 2 or 3, and I can't remember. Um, Either way, he shows up and he fights you, and Neku wonders why, and then he leaves.
I mean, it was more of just a shouting match between the two, and he punches Neku in the anime. So I
Yeah,
don't know if like he'll be back next episode as well, but that's again a wait and see.
yeah, he makes a couple of appearances. So
Oh well, I mean, I know he'll make an appearance again. He's pretty important, I assume. But it just more of like if he'll appear exactly next episode or if we'll have to wait.
well, remember the rules which they said, I believe in episode 3, and they said it, I think, in 2 as well. That Reapers can't attack players directly, and that yet we see,
Beat does it directly to Neku.
yeah, and so like that
I mean, yeah. Also, his wings aren't exactly black.
all of them are kind of purplish in the show, at least.
No, in the show, like they're all like portrayed as like pretty much pure black. Leaks like Beats is the only one that looks more bluish than black.
I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Maybe that was just me though. I'd have
I
to
don't know.
rewatch it.
Maybe I just am misremembering it, but it looked a bit like a bit more blue in at least the shot that we saw of it.
I don't remember if I rewatched it. I could keep an eye out for that, but off the top of my head, I don't know. Uh, but yeah, so that happens, and then Josh, Josh looks so menacing, which is really funny. Um, because he's only ever really displayed as a prick.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of just what the episode ends on, you know. And I don't know, like well, I mean, we'll definitely get more into it next episode, I'm sure, but it just pretty much ends with like Joshua basically questioning Neku, hey, did you scan me?
Yeah, so in the game, you just touch the player pin and then you can scan everyone around you. Uh, in the show, obviously, they've made it so you have to like directly touch the person. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to be subtle with that. Um, fanfic writers, enjoy. Um, but uh, in the game, I think it's been a while since I've played this part of the game. Um, I believe Josh does figure it out eventually, not this early on. You scan Josh a couple of times without Josh knowing. Um, so it's interesting to see now that Josh does know how that's going to change things because this conflict between them doesn't really start till later in the week, but they've already started the conflict. So
Well, I mean, I mean, they've kind of already built that. Like the two don't really trust each other, so
I
I
mean,
mean,
Josh.
also probably. I mean, I'll probably also give some conflict for next episode that can take up the entire day instead of like 2 days.
True, true. Um, yeah, that's part of the thing too. Is that like Josh looked very kind of menacing at the end of the episode, and besides just being menacing, um, he does show some kind of hatred towards Neku, kind of like what he said. In the game, he much more just makes fun of Neku. Like he's just an arrogant prick who makes fun of Neku the entire time.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and that could still be a thing, you know. It's just I assume they also want to keep the plot going, you know.
yeah, but that's my thing is like the fact that they're now showing him kind of menacing. I'm like, and the fact that Josh knows that Neku has been scanning him already instead of later on. It's like
Although
what?
I'd hate it if they're like, "Were you kidding me?" Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just here to make a joke. It was a joke
That sounds like Josh.
because it could also go that route.
Yeah.
But
So
otherwise, I think that's about it for that episode as well.
yeah, I would say out of all the Joshes that I can think of, he's the second best Josh.
Well, how many other Joshes do you know?
One, but he moved to Kentucky.
Fair enough.
uh, anyways.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyways,
then
so
it's you.
yeah. I mean, but you know, I'm not that special. Um, and so I guess if we want, we could quickly talk about the next episode previews title.
Oh yeah, it was a cat.
Yeah, which definitely seems like an acronym for something.
In the game, there was more foreshadowing to what it was, but you had to kind of seek it out for yourself. Um, like I said, you could scan people, and you could actually scan people just walking down the street. And there are a couple people in the first week that mention cat, but
Hmm,
they don't really paint a clear picture. They just mention it and or think about it because you're reading their minds.
I see.
Um, but if you don't scan NPCs, then you wouldn't see the name until this point. So, um, but do you remember what the Utagawa graffiti is? Right? I mean, it's one of the key artwork of the game.
Yeah. I mean, at least from how Neku mentioned it.
Yeah. What was it?
I don't remember.
should I say it? Because they've already even shown it in the show.
We'll just save it for next week.
Okay.
If it clicks next week and I'm like, oh, that was so obvious, I should have picked up on that, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, you do that. Anyways, I think that's all I got.
I think that's it. This has been the 7 Days podcast. That's Way We Podcast episode 3. Thank
And
you for
4.
watching. And well, no, it's just episode 3 of the podcast.
Thank you. See y'all later. Bye.
Come back next week.